Good evening. It's now 6:30. I'd like to bring this meeting to order. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call. Tom Sinkwitz.
Here.
Dave Sheldon. Here. Amy Roman. John Cabela. Here. Linda Fedora.
Here.
Adrian Ferrari.
Here.
Eddie Main. Here. Keith Shield. First order of business is to review and act upon the minutes from the last meeting. Are there any questions or corrections that need to be made to the minutes? Motion to accept the minutes from the April 13th meeting. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Our first order of business is to discuss and act upon the budget proposal for fiscal year 22-23 as presented by the town and the board of ed. Before we begin the discussions, I would like to just make an opening comment, and that last summer I had some really good advice from one of our local business owners, and she basically told me, go out and talk to people, but shut up and listen. Ask them questions and hear what's going on in their minds. And so I kind of took that approach when talking about the budget and just asked people what they thought. And one of the first things that came out of their mouth was, inflation is killing us. Everything's going up. Other people said, I live on a fixed income, I can't afford any more taxes. But then other people said, we need to keep moving the town forward. We need to keep doing what's right for the people that live here. Some of the comments were more pointed, but some of them were generalized in that they felt that some of the things that we're doing are really good. Some things we are doing could be done better. They're hopeful that brighter days are ahead, and I think that what we've been able to accomplish the last several weeks as we looked at budgets, I think that that optimism is well-founded, and that we've been able to work together and listen to each other, ask the right questions, and get answers to questions that maybe we didn't understand before. And so with that in mind, I'd like to open up the floor to the rest of the board to see what they have to say as we proceed with this portion of the meeting.
Well, I'd like to talk about the fund balance portion of the budget. I was talking with Kevin the other day. I think really the 1.3 million on that section is kind of high. What I would like to do is pretty much remove everything from that except for the Dow Road Bridge and the $300,000 for road constructions. And those other items will still be in fund balance, and during the course of the year we could probably do something at that point. Keep the 172 and the 300 in there.
Any other thoughts?
I could see a benefit to what Gary just said, because I know we've had to resort to the fund balance several times for unexpected circumstances, which, we have the fund balance for, in my opinion, limited number of reasons. One is, again, things that we couldn't have budgeted for. But the other thing is to be able to pay our bills in a real state of emergency, as Kelly emphasizes to us on a regular basis. So, what Gary is suggesting there, again, I can see being helpful to the fund balance, and that we need to be very careful and not deplete that fund balance without also discussing how we're going to be replenishing it in the future.
I can agree with the sidewalks. They, try to help the fund balance. We spent a lot of money down on the fund balance that year. I think we're getting dangerously close.
Any other questions or comments? Ted?
Yeah, just a couple of things. I'll start with the police department. I spoke to both of the chief and the assistant at some time or other about manpower. But somewhat disappointed, I didn't see, or maybe I missed it, anybody asking for any extra help.
Please.
So we're at 18, you should be at what, 21 you said?
22.
22?
So we are at 19, and I did put in for an extra police officer this year. So put us to 20.
Actually, anybody from the highway department? Ron Barabee is not here. He said they're at 10, and their full force is 13. But I don't remember seeing any request for any more manpower. I'm not sure why that is.
I think he might, I could be wrong, we'd have to look at the minute. I think he said that was as high, he's like, we're at 10, we've been as high as 13, so I'm not sure if 13 is what they need. I think that's as much as they've had in the past. That's how I interpreted it.
Yeah, I agree. I can, I looked at it that way too. But when my question was what he needed for manpower,
Yeah.
and I took it as that his way of answering me is he should be at 13. Do you know Ron?
No.
Okay, that's a typical Ron Barabee answer. I don't mean that in a bad way. He's not going to make any waves. That's all I have for now.
Any other questions or comments? Well, first I'll recognize the first selectman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Seems like we are discussing the town side of the budget at this point. I'd like to be able to reply to some of the comments that were made so far. If the intent is to minimize what is there for the fund balance on that last page, I can understand the concerns you have, but I also want to bring up some points. That means that you would like to do away with the police evidence building. You would like to do away with the town hall garage, the Lions Park solar lights, the new boiler, which we could do this year. You would like to do away with all the playground improvements, community center upgrades, the pool and locker upgrades, Shepherd Hill sidewalk, the Lathrop Road sidewalks. Those are just the engineering costs of those two. The rest is all paid for by the state of Connecticut. And it also has, you're also looking to get rid of the IT upgrades for cybersecurity.
Not get rid of it, no.
Well, you said the things you wanted to keep were the road construction and Dow Road Bridge. That eliminates everything else.
Correct.
Inclusive of that would be the Quinmont Valley Trail.
But you come to us with your cyber quotes and specifications, that's when we would appropriate the money for these items during the course of the year. We're not throwing them away.
I've already got the Lathrop Road sidewalks and ready to go. They're ready to actually break ground soon, so I'm not sure where I
But
would.
you got a contract already?
Ready to go.
You have a contract?
a contract with the state of Connecticut?
How about the engineer?
Engineers already been allocated.
Contract?
Well, that would be once you approve it. So I would have to come back, and just so you know, what you're asking me to do is come back to this board and commission according to the way the charter works and ask for every single thing individually.
Individually or group certain items? If you have to go out to town meeting or a referendum, correct? Yeah.
You want them all grouped on one meeting?
No.
Well, I really need to know what your intent is before I mean, I can't just give up on it.
I mean, personally, if I look at the capital improvements and whatever projects we got coming up, I take those before sidewalks.
So you don't consider safety over by Lathrop Road an issue?
I'm not saying that, but I'm saying I'm looking at your
You kind of
list,
are when you're saying-
or the HVAC in the school system. That'll be coming up too.
I'd be willing to pair off a few of these items, absolutely, but there's certain things that I think are absolute needs for safety. I think is one of them. I thought that's one of the first things we talked about, safety. And so you'd actually be willing to go to a town meeting and then to referendum, for the way the charter is currently proposed, and have multiple questions then, each one, or you're going to do a whole one shot?
Well, it depends on your schedule as far as your engineering for the sidewalks or whatever it is. And these other projects, depending on what comes up, you can pair them up in groups, then with separate questions. Just an idea.
I'm just saying that I'm having a hard time.
That 1.3 million is way too much for me.
Well, you want me to start paring it down, I can pare it down. But I think that if you're to say you want to have a certain dollar value to knock it down to, that might help. But to knock down and only keep up $472,000 of it is very difficult.
Yeah.
So I would say come up with a, Gary, I would say come up with a dollar amount, what Kevin decided. Way to go on that one.
I mean, that's a suggestion. It's up to the rest of you guys to put your input in too.
I'd say we give him a dollar amount, but him, because he sees the day-to-day operations better than, well, I do, a lot of us here do.
I mean, I think
Well,
that,
you're gonna do
He's got a better
the
view.
new pool boiler this year.
I'm hoping, yes.
Okay. So, get rid of that one for sure.
Mr. Chairman, can I say something just real quick on the storage?
Please.
So there might be a little misconception of what this is. Obviously, we're in a building that is relatively older, that has not had upgrades. And what we're trying to do is build an evidence storage building that's not attached to the PD. I'm not coming forward looking for a new police department.
Right.
But I need storage for evidence. That puts us in a liability as well as a court case issue when we have a situation arising. And what we're doing to try to save money is we're doubling up as a garage to house our mobile command, which is a $250,000 piece of equipment that was donated that is sitting in the parking lot and not in use, so this protects it. So we're doubling it up instead of just having one piece or saying I need a garage. I need it to store evidence, I need it to store property that can't, or that is not allowed even per fire marshal inside the building where people are. So if we keep pushing that off, we're going to open ourselves up to a higher liability issue with that project. So it's not like I'm asking for an addition putting onto the building. This is a spot where we're going to be storing, of course, the fatal motor vehicle crashes. So what we do is we take that, whether it's leaking fluid, gas, or whatever, we're putting it inside our bay where our mechanic works and leaving it in there and kicking him out until we can finish with that vehicle. Sometimes it can take anywhere from 2 weeks. Sometimes we have to have it in there for 2-3 months. What do we do with that? Now we have a mechanic who's working outside or working out back at the town garage where now he can't utilize his office. Just wanted to make sure I could clarify it, but
so really quick, because this actually came up last week and nobody was able to answer this. Who is responsible for the mechanic?
so the mechanic is the town's mechanic, works for the town, is part of the town's union, the highway department.
But we heard that the highway department has somebody there already.
That handles the larger trucks,
Okay.
the tri-axles. The mechanic handles all, off the top of my head, I'm just gonna say 15 vehicles, handles all the town hall's vehicles, handles all the rec department vehicles, the cars and trucks, not the big triaxles and the heavy duty
Okay.
equipment.
So there's two mechanics under highway.
Correct.
One of them does all the trucks, the other one does all the vehicles and pickups, and of course the police.
Correct.
And he is stationed out of the police department.
Correct.
Okay,
So-
so we were trying to figure that out and
Yep.
we couldn't get an answer.
So, he actually was off for a couple weeks, and we had 3 down vehicles. Then we reached out to the highway department's mechanic, because we were down
Yeah.
3 cruisers, and brought them over, and he was able to do it. So, it does go hand in hand, and he does work on other town vehicles as well. But he's just, his office, so to say, is at the police department. And the other mechanic, his office, so to say, is at the town highway department.
So if you have to kick them out of the garage because you're storing evidence in there until you can get it wherever you need to, then he can't get to your vehicles, he can't get to the town vehicles, he can't get to the trucks.
That's correct.
I think what we need to do as a board is I think we need to figure out, I think the only fair thing to do is not to say, give us your numbers, like, almost say, hey, what's your best deal on it, and actually find out. I know that we've talked to several different people out in the community and find out, are they okay with increasing the mill rate? Are we looking at keeping it flat? Are we looking at bringing it down? And then from there, we can probably give the town an idea, hey, this is what we are looking for you to cut it down, along with town, Board of Ed, police, whoever. You know what I'm saying? But I think they need a number and not just, let's get rid of this whole fund balance minus 2 things. So we should probably talk about the mill rate a little bit.
I do have a question regarding the fund balance. What percentage are we at right now? This is incorporated into the budget, where did that put us?
12.8,
12.8. That's where we're at right now.
yes.
All right, so if we incorporate this into the budget, what would that do to the fund balance?
It's at 12.8 with this number
With this number,
incorporated.
okay.
Yeah.
Same number.
10. Well, 10, you can't go below 10. If you go 10 or below, you have to incorporate it in next year's budget to bring it back up. Above 10.
Any other questions?
What is the mill rate increase now?
If the mill, if everything is approved as is, the mill rate would go to 28.57.
And what
It
kind of
currently
mill-
exists at 28.33.
So go, yeah, I mean, you're looking at what?
Yeah, okay.
5 years ago, the mill rate was 29.92, and it dropped significantly below 28, but it came back up to 28.33, and it's been held at 28.33 for the last 3 years.
I think we have a real good budget as is. I'm ready to vote yes.
Yes, sir.
Will public comment be before you vote or after?
It's typically after.
Could we make a motion to move it before you vote?
I don't believe that's proper protocol, I'm sorry. And your name is?
Paul.
Thank you. All right, any other questions? As I said in my opening comments, that most people that I spoke to are concerned about, obviously, inflation, about their taxes going up. I think that, as Ted alluded to, this is a pretty good budget, but I do think that there's some opportunities that we can take advantage of. I personally would like to see the mill rate stay as it is. After listening to everything that I've heard over the last several weeks, I think that there's a couple opportunities that we could take advantage of to keep that mill rate flat. But that is my personal opinion. I think we have to be mindful of a couple things. Fixing what's going to need to be fixed on a timely basis. Fixing it before it becomes a catastrophe. I think the other things that we have to be mindful of, and this number just kind of boggled my mind. We have a student body that has 50% of poverty over the low poverty level. We have to understand how that translates to what parents are facing in these days. With increased inflation, cost of gas, groceries, everything that impacts. I personally would favor a flat mill rate. That does mean that we would have to find 251,000, I believe the number. We would have to trim 251,000 from the budget as it is presented. But again, that is my personal opinion. I think that's a number that can be workable for all parties. What I would like and appreciate feedback on that.
Okay, take the runner, could be, and, you know, everything flat.
That will keep our mill rate consistent.
I can live with it being flat. Down a little bit more deductible, but I can live with it being flat.
Okay.
That's all right.
I mean, I think you're not seeing, how would I put it? You're not seeing things go down, you're seeing everything go up. So I'm inclined with most of the people that are here. While I think that it's a good budget, and I agree with a lot of what they want to do, not all. If you keep it the same, I think that helps, because you're not adding another burden on top of it. So if anything, I would want to try to keep it even, not increase it again.
You're talking about the mill rate?
Yes.
Okay. Which would
mean the 251,000 some odd cut, yes.
But we're talking about is what we need. We have a dollar amount right now in front of us.
251,390, right?
Well, the dollar amount we have right now is what needs to be levied against the individuals, property owners. And that's $29,912,000. If we are able to trim that number by 251, that should keep our mill rate flat. I wonder, Kelly, would you correct me on that if I'm wrong, please? If we were able to trim 251,000 from the budget, total budget as proposed, that would keep our mill rate flat. Is that correct?
28.33, yeah.
And that would keep us at 28.3 for the fourth year in a row.
Correct. Yes.
So,
Well, it begs,
I would like to,
it begs the question, can the town reduce their numbers by 68,000, and can the Board of Ed find 183 to give us?
I found 400 and some thousand for that.
I would like to
Nickel and dime them to that.
Well,
I would like to recognize the first selectman at this point.
Would it be possible to call for a recess for 5 minutes?
Absolutely.
I appreciate that, so you don't make a motion.
I would entertain a motion that we recess for 5 minutes.
I'll make a motion.
Second?
second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Motion carries.
Oh, yeah, hold on, Gene, you still recess?
Yeah.
I haven't reconvened yet.
You're right.
I'm
Oh, you weren't? Okay.
Okay. I will reconvene this meeting. I apologize for taking a little bit of recess, taking a little bit more than 5 minutes, but some information was just presented to us. It kind of dramatically changes quite a bit. So I will try to convey this as best as I possibly can. If you happen to have a budget sheet in front of you, I would like you to look at where the line says 22-23 proposed budget. And if you look at the line that says education cost share, that number goes up. So our revenue in this category is increased. This number was just confirmed by Superintendent Paul Brenton by $350,000. What that does, that additional revenue means that as far as our levy is concerned, our levy is now reduced to $29,562,635, which actually drops our mill rate to 28.23. I think this is great news all the way around. It helps us avoid some very tough choices, but at the same time allows us to continue forward as a town and to progress. So I am pleased with these results, and I'm very grateful for the superintendent for pursuing this information to the point where If he was on the highway, he probably would have been pulled over for talking on his phone, but that's beside the point. So I do appreciate him really being aggressive on this and trying to nail down this information, because some of the information that we've had over the last couple of months has changed. So I appreciate the update on that. I would like to recognize the first selectman though at this point. He has something he would like to say? No?
Just one thing,
Yes, sir.
only because I was coming back to the seat, did you already make a motion to back out of recess?
I don't know that I did or not.
No,
No, we did. So I will entertain that motion.
I
So
don't
moved.
think we come back out of recess.
Second.
Thank you, Don. I appreciate that. Thank you, sir. Anyway, now that we reconvene formally,
So can you, excuse me, but can you explain that again? Because
I
are
will.
we looking at this or are we looking at this?
no, you are looking,
No, I understand that part,
Okay.
but when you say the mill rate would be,
yes, disregard that.
yeah,
Because
okay.
those numbers have changed. Those numbers were based on old information.
No, what you just now said was that it would be 14 or 28.23. That's what you referred to.
Right. All right, I will run through this again. If you have a budget page in front of you,
Mhm.
all right, on the first page where it says, the column says proposed budget 22-23.
Mhm.
If you look at where it says education costs share, the number that you have in front of you is $14,990,047. That number is not correct. That number, as of 10 minutes ago, has been changed to an increase of $350,000, bringing that number up to $15,340,047. That
7 cents.
That in turn impacts the levy, which is at the toward the bottom on the same column, which says property tax levy. It means our levy is changing from $29,912,635 to $29,562,635. The impact that has is it drops the mill rate from 28.33 to 28.23. Hopefully I have clarified that.
Yes.
So that everybody understands. Thank you again for providing that information and noticing that. Appreciate that. All right. At this point, do we have any other questions about the information I just gave? All right. One of the things that I would like to bring attention to is the fact that we have within our town personnel, we have certain people that, in my opinion, are inadequately compensated. And I think that we should take a closer look at that. My concern is that these folks, that if we don't take care of them, we may lose them to other municipalities. So the first one that I would like to bring attention to is our finance director. I believe that in looking at other municipalities, she is underpaid. The other one I would like to bring attention to is the Office of Selectmen. When we have multiple department heads that are making significantly more than that office is, I think that is something that needs to be addressed within the parameters of the budget that we will establish shortly. So I would entertain any other comments in regards to those two items.
What are you proposing?
I'm proposing that we don't underpay them.
So do you have a number in mind?
I do not. I do not.
Who made the budget?
What's that?
Who made the budget?
It was a collective effort.
Oh, okay. Get the collective to make the change.
Okay? Do you have a thought in mind, Ted?
No, I do not. I'm going to let the collective do that. Whoever
Well,
made
that's
the budget.
not in his authority, at least in this office of the selectman, it's not within his authority to establish his own pay rate.
He can ask for it.
No, but in my opinion, I think he's underpaid. And I know that
Are you
that's,
saying he can't ask for a raise?
I'm saying he can, but it's not up to him to decide if he gets it or not.
Do we have any comp studies, what's going on with our neighbors or
I don't,
towns the same
what?
size?
We do.
Yeah, I do have for first selectmen, just so you guys can
And
see
do
it.
you have one for the finance person too?
Probably in the office, sorry.
I say leave it to the selectmen to make out his budget correctly.
I'm sorry?
Leave it to the selectmen to make out his budget correctly, meaning get what he wants. So, however he sees his budget.
Really?
Very similar.
That's the first select one.
Yeah.
Report to the finance director and creditors.
Huh.
And that's the finance director.
Who has a calculator?
Did you say it's the finance director?
Am I missing Putnam and Jewett City here? Griswold? I don't see two. Are they here?
Brazil has less population.
Yeah, it's a much smaller population.
You know what the total budget is on the chance? Brazil?
Brazil's total budget is smaller than Plainfield, probably about 10 million, I want to say.
What?
Yeah, I think they're at 115.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
So let me ask you this, Mr. Chair, are you looking at the possibility, and I know you just gave us this, so are you looking at the possibility of kind of being somewhere in the middle or closer to the lower end?
What I did is I looked at what the Office of Selectmen was making, and then I looked at the various department heads within the town and within the Board of Ed, and when you consider the responsibilities involved, I think that there's some adjustment that needs to be made on this.
Well, I mean, I'm the one that said that last week as well. It's ridiculous. You have, and I understand people are paid their word, I 100% agree with that, but you also have a person who's kind of trying to run things for the whole town, not the department, and is making less than that. So no, I agree with that, so I think this really helps.
I'm not sure this is the time or place to discuss salaries, having negotiations for salaries.
I mean, well, that's what we did last week, was everybody's like, hey, 3% upgrade, 10%, somebody had a 14% increase, and we discussed salaries last week. So I don't see why the issue would be wrong to discuss it this week, when that's what we do, it's the town money.
It was wrong last week.
It was wrong last week, it's a budget. Part of the budget is what we're here for.
Not to negotiate, not to negotiate salaries.
We either agree with it or
We're
not.
negotiating salaries right now. That should be a private matter.
We
That's
could
my
agree,
opinion.
we could agree to disagree, that's fine.
I would
And there's
tend
more
to-
than salary in a position. There's a lot more to it than just dollar value. All that should be negotiated.
Tom, I'd appreciate your input on this.
I do agree with Ted, actually, that while, there could be some possible increases for these two positions. I don't know that tonight was a plan to be doing that for those specific ones, because I think we could also go to other departments too and decide, are the proposed percentage increases there, were some of those positions that are not contractual obligations, were those appropriate, or should have those been possibly adjusted? I'm not saying that they necessarily shouldn't, but I don't know that we should be making that decision right here and now.
I agree. I think this is a topic that we discuss at possibly our next meeting.
Well, what about the fact that their salaries are included in this budget?
That is a good point too, as well.
I know in the past what we've done is, and I know Ted had mentioned this, is that when it goes back to who made the budgets, the Board of Education's budget, and then first selectmen, working with the departments to make that budget proposal. Usually, if we had certain amounts we want to cut or adjust it, if we have requests, we wouldn't usually go line by line and discuss it here at the Board of Finance. We would say, what is our, suggestion, what's our proposal, and give them the opportunity to make the adjustments, and then they would come back to us. Even if it meant scheduling a special meeting, just to see those reflected and what does that do to the budget. They would come back to us, whether it's on the Board of Ed, Center, Council, like, here it is with the adjustments that you requested. We look at it and be like, all right, that seems more palatable to us, and then we would vote on it as it was adjusted, and presented that way. That's how we've done it.
Thank you. Any other thoughts regarding this? If not, I think that it's appropriate for us to have probably to have a separate meeting for this topic, but we should really get back to the one topic that we're here for specifically tonight, and that is this establishment of a budget that we can put forth to the town. So we have the most current information in front of us. If we adopted the budget as proposed, with the inclusion of the latest information, I think that if we can adopt that budget, and that would still, because we were looking at cutting 251, but now we have 350 that we weren't counting on. I think that provides us with a little bit of flexibility for the future to discuss this matter at a later date.
You mean the salaries,
In replying, yes, specifically to the salaries.
So what was the mill rate?
The new mill rate, based on the newest information, would be 28.23.
Versus 0.57?
Correct. So do we have any other questions or comments? And I would like to say that I appreciate all the input that we've had so far tonight. It's been extremely helpful.
Okay, 28.23
Right.
is what's...
That would be,
With everything here.
yes.
I say go to 28.
We went to 28, how much?
Well, we're at 20 with the new information, this budget as presented, without any deviations, except for the inclusion of the new revenue of $350,000. That decreases the levy that we have to look for, and it also brings our mill rate to 28.23.
So is this something, sorry, go ahead.
What's that?
Is this a decision, so do we need to accept this now, or do we get to have a separate meeting, add everything together and have all of the numbers and the final mill rate after we add town budget, whether we, is that...
Well, we're looking to make a decision on the budget as presented with the inclusion of the new information. At that point, this then goes to, I believe, a town meeting.
Town hearing.
Excuse me.
So after it's decided tonight, it'll go to a town hearing, which is the first Monday of May, and then you get to listen to the people, the residents, and then after that, you decide what you want to go out to a town meeting if needed. Yeah, town meeting, yeah. You would go out to a town meeting. And then after people vote, then you would set your mill rate. So tonight, then I publish it in the paper so residents can see it, and then the town hearing comes.
So the decision that we have to make is a budget number, which then goes to a town meeting.
We could go with that number there, take that 25.23. The public hearing.
Well, the number we're talking about is not the mill rate. The mill
No,
rate's
I
established.
know, but that, whatever that number is,
Mhm.
go to the public hearing for that.
Okay.
So, if nothing changes, then that, no, but they go to that number, the public hearing, see what the public says. We go down from there.
Okay. So are you making a motion? The number we're looking at is 29, the levy would be 29,562,635. That encompasses the budgets as they've been proposed. So we need the motion that we take that number and accept it based on the new revenue. If we do that, then it goes to a town meeting.
I would go that way, I would make that motion.
Okay.
I thought we were looking at 29,912.
That was the original number, but that was based on the 14,990.
Yeah, okay. I got it.
All right, so we have a motion on the floor that the new budget would be $29,562,635. This number here. This is less than the 29,912.
You mean the tax levy, right?
Tax levy.
Tax levy.
Tax levy. So we have a motion on the floor. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. We have a motion on the floor that has been seconded, that we accept the budget with the new levy of $29,562,635 that we sent to a town meeting for May 2nd. Is that correct? May 2nd?
Down here.
Town hearing, sorry,
Down here, May 2nd at 7 p.m.
at 7 p.m. All right, so we have a motion on the floor, and we have a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed?
Nay.
Opposed. Abstentions?
Aye.
I believe we have a deadlock. We do not have a carried motion.
Can I have a show of hands? I'm not sure who voted on it.
All right, all those in favor of sending to the town hearing an approved budget of 29 million, levy 29,562,635 to a town hearing on May 2nd, all those in favor signify by raising their right hand, please. All those opposed? Abstentions?
No.
Opposed. Okay, so
I'm going to go with them.
you're going to go with no?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. That motion does not carry. So we need to have some additional discussion, and we need to come up with a new motion. So since the motion did not carry, what other questions or concerns do we have that maybe we need to have answered?
Ever. For 28 million, right?
For 28 even?
Yeah.
How much you have to cut? I just did that one. $240,837.
Total?
Yes.
many days out does the notice have to be for the public hearing? Yeah.
The board has to go to the town clerk's office not less than 5 days before the public hearing. The public hearing is, that's pretty much it, May 2nd. And then the next day, you're scheduled for a Board of Finance meeting on the 3rd to meet and revise the set and set vote.
Well, using the 28 mil, with the ratio, the Board of Ed would cut 175,811, and the town about 65,026. Going by the ratio. What if you do the 73% ratio?
165,026, and what was the other number?
175,811 and 65,026 for the town. You go by the 73-27 ratio.
I don't see where we have 65,000 in the town to cut.
Oh, I found over 100.
Yeah, well, we want to cut everything.
No, in the general budget.
In the fund balance screen, or?
No.
In which one, where? I'm asking, I'm legitimately asking.
I think I gave you a copy of it in the last meeting.
That wasn't at the
Yes.
last meeting. You got another copy?
Oh, yeah, I think I may have.
We found $1 million. Is that what you found? What is it? Maybe 10. It's almost comical. Would you be able to look into the town general index?
Answer the question?
Yeah, I mean, so like how,
So the general index is,
People come in looking for copies of their sale of the properties. So it costs us money to prepare all the documentation. So that's why it comes in on a regular basis now, because there's more sales going on.
Tom, what are your thoughts?
My thoughts were, I feel that the budget that the townspeople come to the public hearing and discuss to the board, I feel should be as accurate as possible as far as what we want to see. And what I was just realizing with the calendar, as Kelly was putting it, is that, I mean, we could send this forth, and then immediately after, we could, or the next day, we could, at that meeting, have some discussion about adjustments to be made. But, you know, on the flip side, again, that means that we're discussing possible changes tonight, but yet if those changes are not applied in the budget that the public's reviewing at that, I just feel like they're not seeing, you know, exactly what we're trying to propose. But on the flip side, you know, I was also thinking, do we have an opportunity to have a special meeting with an adjusted budget before that? And from what I'm hearing, it doesn't sound like there's really time to have that special meeting prior.
So I wouldn't mind hearing from both the town and the Board of Ed if, and again, this is just for, you know, just thinking, if a $65,000 decrease on the town side and $175 decrease on the Board of Ed side, if that's unreasonable, and if so, why? I'd like to hear arguments as to, yes, it can be done, and then great, and if it can't, well, why? Why is it so necessary? You know what I'm saying?
When the Board of Finance says, this is what we're like a cut, that's what we do.
Well, you're right, but I'd like to hear why, because you're right, we could push it through right now and be like, okay, well, let's do this, but I'd like to see, well, can that be cut, or why can it not? Why can't that be touched?
Well, forgive me
To
for
see if we
making
can
a
be done with
comment, but they submitted their budgets, so, I mean, they submitted what they need.
Well, you're right, but like I said, I would probably be more inclined to be like, well, let's help even more, can we cut this? Is less than we were looking at, so, but tell me why. I'd just like to hear why.
Why?
Like, can that be cut, yes or no? If yes, then it's settled. And if no, then why not?
Short answer, yes.
So on the town side, it can be cut, 65,000.
Yes.
Okay. Can Board of Ed help me out with 175 at all?
So let me speak to this.
Yes, please.
So the first budget I submitted was 1.8%. And after talking to the town and after talking to the Board of Ed, we reduced that several hundred thousand down to 1.38. Understand that over the last 3 years, we've taken zero every year, while our salaries have gone up 3%. When we take a look at our fixed costs and where things are, let's talk about what makes this budget increase. In non-certified salary, there's an increase of $192,000. Understand that those non-certified contracts, which I inherited, have a minimum number of staff. So I cannot cut staff in those non-certified contracts. That's a fixed cost. The second largest part of this is $130,000 of increase in student transportation. Now that increase is really $330,000, but I've used grants to offset that for $200,000 because I can use grants to pay for summer school and other pieces. So understand already that in the 2024 budget, when those grants expire, we're going to see a $330,000 increase in transportation because those COVID grants expire, which is almost 1% of the budget. So we've kicked that down the road, but that's built into the budget. So then we talk about pension and retirement. So you're asking, can we cut $170,000? Understand that in this budget, we've added $100,000 in pension contributions. So that's one of the major drivers of this. Then we consider the fact that we're looking at about, it's 8% inflation today, but we're looking at about 7% inflation overall. And we're talking about increased costs that we've factored in for heat energy, fuel energy, and gasoline within this budget, which are probably, as of today, conservative. So if you're asking me, what does $170,000 look like? We'd have to have a special meeting of the board. In order to cut the $300,000 I had to cut to where we are right now, we had to push some positions into grants that are going to expire in 2024. We know that already. I would be reticent to push further positions into grants because I think it's irresponsible. So, because we're setting ourselves up for a cliff in 2024 if I continue to do that. So I would have to have some hard conversations with our board. It would impact programs that impact kids at this point. I would also ask the Board of Finance to consider that the increase in ECS is intended to be tax relief so that the town is not required to further cut the schools. That's the intent, that's the goal behind the law. So coming in at 1.38 when our contracts alone push us much higher than that, and we've already made cuts in staffing to accommodate for this, I would respectfully, and I appreciate the Board of Finance's efforts to support the town, I respectfully ask you to move forward at the 1.38.
If we move forward, it's to a hearing, right? At which time the people of the town can decide if we're doing the right thing or not. So this is not the final.
No, there'll be,
I don't have a problem moving forward. If at the hearing something different happens, I would follow the majority of the people at the hearing, what they wanted. I would support that 100%.
I mean, Dean, how many residents did you say you talked to?
between 40 and 50.
And again, I know that's not the town population, but they're asking for a full 1% reduction, is what is
No,
based on this,
okay.
right?
A 1% reduction would take us from 28.33 to 27.33.
Well, that's what I'm saying, from what I see here. it
That's
says
the
residency-
extreme. That's-
You're right, no, you're right, but it says suggested, so we go based off of what they would want. I understand we're not, that, it's an extreme, but that's what they are saying. So.
The majority of them don't want to see the mill rate go up.
I do.
You want to see the mill rate go up?
Absolutely, 27.3 cents.
I'm sorry?
That's down.
That's
I
down.
want the mill rate.
Okay.
You want to do, you want, yeah, so you want the full 1% of 27.33.
Yeah, doing the calculation, 27.
Or, on the 350, now, did you use that to supplement the loss of revenue from the town of Sterling, or the tuition and special ed?
So the way that budget works is that all comes in as revenue. So that total number does come up for the total impact of the budget. So the short answer, yes, because of the way we
You
do
actually
that.
only have 132,659 as far as actual revenue, not the 350.
Well, I'd ask you to look at the bottom number. The bottom number there is the full impact of our budget with everything is run. Forgive me, I'm not wearing my glasses.
The impact of the taxpayer is 362.7.
Which is the bottom number on that sheet in the budget we presented.
362.
Are you on the executive summary sheet, Mr. Salomon?
The cost summary right here?
Yes, down in the lower right-hand corner.
Yeah,
it should be a-
the one that's in the box,
Yes.
362.
Yes, that's the impact of the taxpayer based on our ask of our operating budget increase, net of the revenues.
So I'm just trying to figure out this 350 deal.
The 350,000 was
Yeah,
the
because,
increase?
you know, it's actually out of the 350, there's only 132,000 as far as
All of
revenue.
those numbers, however, are in Ms. Vashon's computation.
Yeah, there's no change to those numbers you're looking at.
19,000 is very high. 19,000.
So I would actually correct that number, sir, and I can show you how, because you're counting some other funds that aren't part of it. Our current per pupil as the state gives it to us, and I can give you a copy of this. And again, because we include a lot of grant funds that are part of those and other pieces, our current pupil is $16,937. It's actually one of the lowest in the state of Connecticut with a high pupil. That's off the state website.
Because there's some towns that have $25,000 per student.
We can send them to a private school for
No, it's called the grand list in tax base.
Excuse me, point of order? I don't know who you are.
I'm a resident of Plainfield.
Is he part of our meeting?
So that is a good point, Mr. Chairman, is that as a citizen, you as the chairman do have to recognize, especially because we're not in citizens participation, you have to recognize the citizen. Or just like you recognize the first selectman or the board of ed or the superintendent, you got to make sure you recognize them before they speak.
I thought we were doing citizen participation at a different time.
At the end.
It's the end of the
Oh,
meeting.
I'm sorry, what?
While we're on the subject,
So the budget that would go to the public hearing would be at this 28.23, because of course that's not what the proposal right now. That's when we'll go to public hearing, but again, that's not necessarily what we have to go with to the town meeting. We still have that ability after the public hearing to adjust it
Correct.
if we want.
Correct.
You can have a meeting that night, or you have a meeting the next day, whatever
Right.
the Board of Finance wants to do.
Yeah, I think it's on the calendar for May 3rd for
Yeah.
revisions if needed.
But I would just want to note that we would want that change made, in time for the public before it goes to public hearing. So that they're looking at what we discussed tonight of right not at the 28.33 current, but at the 28.23.
That's the one we give.
Yeah, that was the motion that was just put forward. It was based on the tax levy,
Yeah.
and the new calculations would bring the mill rate to 28.23. if there are no other questions or comments, I would look for a new motion.
I would motion the same thing again.
You would repeat your motion?
Yep.
That the tax levy of $29,562,635 be presented to the town hearing on May 2nd.
I'll second that.
Okay. We have a motion, $29,562,635 to be presented at the town hearing on May 2nd.
How many yeses, how many noes?
I believe it's 4 yeses, 1 no.
No extensions?
That would be me. All right, at this time, I'd like to welcome to the podium the first selectman to review and discuss, share with us his 5-year capital plan.
I think you have the, by the way, thank you very much for the acknowledgement. The proposed 5-year capital plan, as you can see, has a few items which we'd like to be able to address. I'm not sure what we're talking about in the HVAC this season or not. We don't know. We're trying to get the HVAC company to come in and do what they're supposed to do this year. I'm not sure if that one is in. The garage to the house, the maintenance department obviously does a twofold thing. It brings our maintenance department here, instead of having to travel over to the highway department, to the sewer department, pick up the materials and come back over here, and then start a shift to do some maintenance here. It also means that the sewer department now has a different garage that they could use, which they haven't needed for a while. That's why you see in that first area there, the town hall listed as it is. The next one is public works. We have $300,000 listed for the paving, as is in the budget. We have a backhoe listed for $220,000. Police station, 2 vehicles for $8,000. Animal control, a heater in the bathroom for $2,500. And then recreation, playground equipment upgrades, park and recreation, basically looking for upgrades for bleachers, concession stand renovations, community center flooring repairs, some more pool repairs that are needed, and then it should say just locker room renovations versus pool repair locker room. That's 72 for that. And then you have some benches that have been requested for multiple years, 5,000. Then the other items that you see in the bottom of the page that flips over to the rest of that is talking about how the parks and properties would like to have a trail, Shepherd Hill construction. These are all, by the way, engineering costs. And then the Plainfield Road sidewalk construction, as well as Dow Road Bridge. So the grand total for government would be 1.547. So there is an opportunity for adjustments if it's so needed. That's why we try to do a 5-year capital. If you have any questions about the following years, that's fine as well. But we try to make sure that we do a good job of putting together a package that is responsible numbers, but also addresses what you need to do within a 5-year period. We've been having the advisory building committee go to every building, look at all the buildings, see what needs to be done for upgrades, to make sure they continue on with that path. There's an eventual need, as you can also tell, there's an eventual need for other buildings to be replaced as well. We did speak briefly about the police station, and sooner or later, we will have to do that as well, so you'll see that eventually here. So that's why the 5-year capital is in place. I'd be willing to entertain discussion or questions on anything on
Just a quick thing, on the building committee, are there findings in this list at all?
some of them were already taken care of.
Okay.
So we were actually very fortunate.
Okay, do we have any questions to the first selectman regarding the 5-year capital plan? Comments? All right, if not, I will open the floor up to citizens' participation. If you would like to share.
Mr. Chair, don't we need to act on that?
Oh, I'm sorry, thank you.
I make a motion to accept the 5-year capital plan.
by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you, Tom. All right, at this time, I will open the floor to citizens' participation. I would ask that you utilize the mic and identify yourself, so if there's anybody that has something that they would like to contribute at this time, you're more than welcome.
Paul Hopkins, I own 2 properties, Island Drive and one on Black Hill. There was a $36,932,869 in growth to the grant this year. At 28 mils even, that's an additional revenue of $1,034,120. That equates to the average taxpayer, we have 6,104 accounts in town, to roughly $175 per parcel that the budget would increase by. If you took that number and applied it to the average car, say of $10,000, that's an additional $10 per car that a property owner has. So if you're looking at your average property that has a house and a couple of cars, you're looking at an additional $225 roughly a year by passing the numbers that you just passed. In the current economic time, that's I think going to be a tough pill to swallow, especially when, unfortunately, we know that most people in town don't participate. So it's a little too late now, but I, just wanted to bring that to your attention. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? If not, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you all for your time.